Maybe.
Hello.
Does anyone hear that? Ivan, do you hear that background noise?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
Well, how does the audio sound, everyone?
Sounds good to me.
Maybe I just need to make my volume a little lower. Okay, well, cool. I think we should give folks a few extra minutes just to, trickle in.
I do have a new audio setup, so um, I, I'm trying to adjust it.
It's just like, yeah, it's very, I guess it's very high quality.
It is?
Yeah, I heard you like moving in your chair.
Oh, that's high gain. Um,
Yeah.
I might
Oh,
I might just
excuse
need to
me. Yeah,
drop.
the gain is a little much. Well, anyway, I'm excited for today. We got a special guest.
Yeah, me too. Hey Evan.
Should we wait to introduce him?
Depends when you want to actually start.
I think we give it like another 30 seconds.
All right. A
I
little bit
like
of
to
music.
build up the hype. So we're using Yard, and you can't add music really. But I posted in Discord. I tweeted about it. How is everyone in the chat? Oh, you need a little more gain.
Um,
And now my mic is too loud. I don't know how to lower mine.
hello,
I'll just
hello,
put it a little
hello.
further away.
I think as long as the sound's balanced, right? As
Exactly.
long as the volume's pretty close, then I think people can adjust on their end.
Okay, it looks like we got a good number of people I see, so why don't we get started? So welcome to, I believe this is our last episode of season 1 of Amplify with Friends. That's true, right, Sean?
Oh no, yeah, yeah. We gotta bring it to a close before the holiday season, and this seems like a good place to close with a bang with one
Yeah.
of our most awesome features.
Yeah, so this is the last episode, and I don't know if it's very official, but I think we were renewed for another season, right?
The producers have
We
picked
got
us
the
up
is
for
it
another
the
season.
green light? Yeah, so we will be back, I think, after the new year, and the style of the show will be a little different. I believe once a month we'll do like a update, like a developer update, so talk about all the product announcements, um, and like maybe invite some of like the product managers on, and then we'll also do shows like this. Yes, Elise says we had great ratings. Um, but anyway, so today we're going to talk about DataStore, which I'm excited about because it's obviously a really important feature for Amplify, but it's also a feature that just seems to have a lot of excitement and questions around it. So I think this is a great opportunity to meet with Ivan, who is an engineer on the team. So do you want to introduce yourself, Ivan?
Sure. So my name is Ivan Artemiev. I have been at Amazon for about a year and a half. I'm based out of Indianapolis, Indiana, and originally come from Moscow, Russia.
Sweet.
So for the last like few months, probably like 3 or 4 months, I've been primarily focused on DataStore.
So you're an expert, would you say?
I don't know if I'd go that far, but I know a thing or two about it. So
Well, that's good.
Well, I always see him all over the GitHub issues. So yes,
I would
he is
say
an
you're an
expert.
expert.
His
Yeah.
time is very precious, and yeah, thanks so much for taking some time to join us. And I think
absolutely.
people love meeting the people behind the things that they use. It very much humanizes the project. That it's not just like this monolithic AWS that is like vaguely behind this. Like it's actual just people working on it.
Exactly. It's not like there's robots behind the scenes. I guess there are some. Um, anyway, in terms of announcements, I think the biggest one is just that reInvent is 2 weeks away. So if you'd like to sign up, it is totally free, which is really cool because normally you'd have to go to Vegas, and there's going to be hundreds of different like on-demand videos. Uh, the name of our track, Sean, is just front end and mobile, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So the front
F
end and mobile track.
FWM.
Yeah. So the front end and mobile is going to have all specific content for Amplify. I don't, want to tease too much, but how would you say? There are some cool new features
We've
going to be
got
announced. So
we've
I
got
can tell you
yeah.
that there'll be new things announced for Amplify exclusively at reInvent. I don't know which day those are happening. But if you sign up, I assume you'll be in the loop. And yeah, let's see. Danny is asking what my temperature is. Why are you asking that? But anyway, so let's start off. So yeah, Ivan, do you want to just give us like a what is DataStore?
Yeah, absolutely. So AWS Amplify DataStore is essentially it's like a local database that runs on device, and it allows web and mobile applications to enable seamless offline usage. So typically, when we build mobile and web apps, the common way of persisting data is to send it to some endpoint on the back end, and then that backend logic will persist it to a database, often running in the cloud. And that's a perfectly fine approach, specifically if you have a really reliable network connection. It's fast, there are a few disruptions. However, in the real world, that often is not the case. Specifically, when using mobile devices, internet connectivity can be intermittent. Even using websites, web apps, if you're not like on your home connection, that might be reliable, but you're like elsewhere, once again, you can run into various interruptions. And so customers have reached out to us quite a bit and expressed their need to solve this offline use case, like how to enable web and mobile applications to function offline, to continue working pretty much as well as they did when the connection was stable. So DataStore is, as I said, it's a local on-device store. It utilizes different kind of underlying database technologies depending on the platform. So on JavaScript, it uses IndexedDB, which is an in-browser store. For React Native, we use async storage, and on the native mobile platforms, it's SQLite. And then those are the platforms that we currently support with DataStore. Amplify Flutter is going to be adding support really soon. So basically, kind of the way I think about DataStore is you as the developer don't really need to think about whether the app is online or offline. So whether there is network connectivity or not. We provide a simple API for performing CRUD operations, and all the operations are performed against the local store first. So let's say when you save data, it goes into your local database. If you're reading data, if you perform a datastore.query, it's once again querying that local store. And DataStore can function in kind of a offline only or local only mode, right? It doesn't actually have to sync to the cloud, but you can optionally enable it to. And of course, that's where a lot of its power comes from, is it will sync all your data to AppSync, and then AppSync persists it to DynamoDB or potentially some other store. And it also performs conflict resolution out of the box. So for example, if you have multiple of your end users that are modifying the same data or just adding records, maybe they're both offline, maybe one's offline, the other one's online, AppSync will basically handle the resolving the conflicts of multiple users mutating that data for you. And there's various strategies for that that we can get into if anyone has questions about that.
I shared my screen just because I thought it might help some folks. If there's like a visual. Do you want to talk through any of these diagrams? I mean, you guess you sort of did.
Yeah, I did at a high level, but essentially this just further illustrates how the developers, they interact with the local store. They are kind of, everything else, the syncing happens behind the scenes. And this just sort of illustrates how DataStore works with on different platforms. So like the storage adapter part, that's essentially a plugin that it's we have kind of adapters that work with the various underlying stores that I described. And then the sync engine ensures that the local contents are in sync with the cloud. So it performs mutations on the way out and receives subscription messages on the way in.
Yep.
So that's pretty much a high level overview. If we have questions, we can dive into it, any of the specifics that the viewers might be interested in. But I wanted to show, I made a really basic app just to kind of demonstrate DataStore functionality.
Yeah, do you want to share your screen? Also, if anyone in
absolutely.
chat has questions, this would be a great opportunity to ask them. So if you just post in the Twitch chat.
Cool. Actually, let me pull
I don't
that
know,
up
Sean,
as
if you
well.
can see the questions too.
No, I'm just looking at the screen.
Okay.
I mean, I also have questions. Actually, I could.
Yeah, me too. I do see 2 questions came in, but why don't you ask first, Sean?
Oh no. There's first because mine are just more like I want to know more about conflict resolution. I have other observations about what DataStore does for you, and I'm a big fan. So, but we'll talk about that when we see the code. Matt,
Yeah,
I think
that's
you
what I was
need to
gonna say.
give the screen to Ivan.
Ivan, are you sharing your screen?
Not yet. One
Okay.
second.
I'll wait for him to do that. Okay. One person says, how would you manage S3 storage with Cognito groups? Well, is that related to DataStore?
No, that's not
Okay.
that's not relevant to
Um,
DataStore.
that maybe
you
we
would
can come
use the
back to
rest of
later.
you would use the rest of Amplify libraries to do that.
But you would just use auth with the storage component, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's actually a good tutorial on that I can try to find. If we use DataStore, it means that we are going to store the data locally on the device before it sends to the cloud. But does it imply to have a big storage capacity on the device? Well, I would assume you would need to have storage capacity.
Yeah, so I mean that varies very widely depending on the type of data you're storing. Ultimately, you can also select subsets of your data that actually get persisted. So by default, the entire contents of the cloud storage, so let's say using DynamoDB as an example, the entire contents of the table, the Dynamo table will be synced to your local store. However, we did recently release a feature that we're calling selective sync that allows you to specify predicates on which to filter the sync queries that hydrate the local store.
Okay, but wait, yes, there's one other question. So what happens if more than 2 users are offline and they're updating the same store? How are conflicts managed?
That's
Asking
Yeah.
for a friend.
So by default, we use the auto merge conflict resolution strategy, and that will essentially merge any non-conflicting fields. So, and I'll actually demonstrate this in this little sample app. But let's say if one user is mutating the name field and another is mutating, let's say, the phone number, right? So then those just get merged together, and the edits of each user are retained. However, if they're editing the same one, then basically the latest one will win out, the most recent update. There's also a conflict resolution strategy called optimistic concurrency, and that does not kind of attempt to merge by field. It examines the entire item and goes off of the version of the item. And lastly, you can configure custom conflict resolution using a Lambda function where, if your conflict resolution needs to follow a specific business logic, then that would be the way to implement that.
I added a poll, by the way, if anyone wants to vote, saying, "Are you interested in using DataStore? Yes or no?" Just so we can get a sense. But okay, we should probably. Do you want to
Check out
explain
the
what is
demo.
on the
Yeah,
screen? There's a lot of
yeah,
crazy
absolutely.
looking things.
So basically, this is just it's a fairly contrived. It's a really contrived app. It's an Office pet directory. Basically, it's just a way for people to like upload their pets and provide some basic information about them. It's something I made last night in preparation for this. So basically, what we have cats and dogs. All of this data is just kind of it's randomly generated. All of the images are pulled from endpoints that grab like random cat and dog images.
What
So
endpoints are those?
give me a
I've
sec.
never.
I can tell you exactly.
Sean, are you aware of an API that returns random cats and dogs?
Yeah, so there's API
There's
dot
dog
the
CEO.
yeah,
Dog
exactly.
CEO.
So
That's the one.
that's the
Dog
dog
C.
one, and then
What's
there's the
the? It's dog.ceo.
mhm.
Yep.
I've
Yeah,
never in
it's
my
this
life heard of that.
In the code demos
Oh my
industry,
god.
I have a list of these things. Oh
Yeah,
wait,
so
the matches
it's
disappear.
basically like cats as a service and dogs as a service,
Yep.
which sounds
Could
delightful.
you zoom in? It's a common
Yeah,
request to
absolutely.
Sorry, I.
Is that a little better? Let me
yeah,
get rid of my
and just
sidebar too.
Yeah, it is a little big, small, I should say.
minimize your yeah.
Maybe just show one
Anything
screen
is
at a
yeah
time.
anything you're not working on right now, you could just
Fair enough.
close.
Yeah, let me I'll start CRA from my terminal externally so we can get some more screen real
Cool.
estate here. Let me kill this. One moment. Okay, but yeah, so basically I just use Mocker. It's like a data generation library, and yeah, I just populate data store with these random values. So it's funny. The animals all have human first names, so my app's reloading. But yeah, anyways, so yeah, these buttons up here, we can just basically generate
Wow.
10 more, and it pulls the image in from those endpoints. So, but yeah, this is just for demonstration. This isn't a practical app.
So where is it
uh,
saving the images right now?
so that they're not saved. We're just persisting the URL.
I see.
So let me show you the schema. Um, it's once again very basic, just single table, single model, no auth at this point, really nothing but the basics. I wanted to keep this really light and really simple to start with, and then if someone wants to see
Hey,
kind of like
Ivan,
how you would
we have
expand on this, I can add functionality to it.
It
What
is
were
a
you saying,
little.
we have
Sean?
a
It is
request
small.
to zoom in a little bit more.
Okay, one
Just
sec.
Could you just
How
show
about now?
one file at a time?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, I could do that.
he
it
doesn't. I
would.
mean, he could just needs to zoom in. He's got
Oh,
space.
Is this better
right.
now?
Maybe one more, two more
It is
times.
better. Yeah.
I
There
don't
we
know.
go. Okay,
There
now
we
I
go.
can see.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
First rule of live streaming.
Yeah, it's actually my first time. So
Yeah.
apologies.
Yeah,
Um,
we all get to it.
so anyway, so this is the schema for our API, and this is basically, the schema in DataStore is kind of how you define your data model, how you define relationships, etc. Authentication settings, any kind of optimizations like GSIs, LSIs, etc. It's all done through the schema, and pretty much anything that's relevant to the app. Um, when we perform an Amplify push and then generate the models, we can import this pet in this case, which corresponds to the pet model, and that will provide code completion or IntelliSense for when I'm utilizing this model in my app, which is really convenient. So basically, let me just go through. what we can do with this app, we can add a new pet. We can edit an existing one or delete them. And so first, let me just show you kind of how this works side by side with the app running in a different browser. So we'll open Chrome on the left, Firefox on the right, and both of these are technically online right now. We're not restricting the connectivity. So let's go ahead and edit Hannah. We'll call, I don't know, let's say banana, whatever. So
it is connected.
Yeah, exactly. So the Firefox app updated as well. I misspelled that, but whatever. Let's put it back to Hannah. It updates as well. So let's, we'll add 10 pets on the Chrome side. So it'll generate them. It'll send off the subscriptions, and then the Firefox app will receive those and update the UI. So now let's try to do some offline functionality to see how this would work if, let's say, user, like an end user, is interacting with this app and they lose connectivity. So I'm going to just DevTools. We're going to, this is for the Chrome app. We're going to go to offline and get rid of this.
The Chrome app is on the left, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Chrome is on the left. So let's add, so we'll add one pet here. So it doesn't render the image because it doesn't have connection. But then let's say we, like make some more modifications. I can't think of a name right now. We'll do that. And then we can also edit, let's say this one.
That is going to be cool.
Call it Sammy or something like that. And then so as you can see, this one's updated on the online app on Firefox. It's still the same because we're offline. So now let's go back online.
So what should we expect to see?
So we should expect this doggy to also show up in the Firefox app.
With the rename name, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then for this Sammy, which is Santina here, we expect that name to sync over as well.
One thing to also try is maybe change the name of Santina in the offline version.
That's what I was curious to see.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that next. Let's just do this one first for just like a simple showing. Okay, so okay, cool. Yeah, they uploaded. So here's doggy. This is like my placeholder. If I refresh the page, it'll pull that in. Let's see, there it is, doggy. But yeah, so let's go offline again, and then we'll update the same field, or just at least the same item. So we'll go offline. Let's say, let me actually sort these by name.
It's nice that your app has a counter too.
Yeah, yeah, just for instant visibility to make sure everything's in sync. And I'll touch on sorting some more. That's actually a newer feature that we added. So I'll just kind of demonstrate how to actually use it in the code. But yeah, so for now, let's go with this add a line. Let's just call her Addie. And then this tech support, let's say
AppSync.
Okay, yeah, whatever. Let's do AppSync. Okay, so does it actually go offline here? Yes, just making sure. Okay, so that's offline. We save, we see the changes locally. And so this isn't just in the UI state, it's persisted into IndexedDB. So I'll demonstrate that really quickly. Actually, it might be hard because there's no way to sort this. Okay, well, actually, here it is, Addy, and AppSync. So this just shows the contents of IndexedDB using Chrome DevTools. Okay, so and then on this side, let's edit the same item, and I don't know, we'll call her.
Bear.
Okay, that
It's the
works.
name of
Bear.
someone's dog.
Yeah, it's Sam's dog.
Sam's dog. Yeah. Shout out to Sam if you're
Right.
watching.
Yep. uh, best manager in the world.
Should you change the
So
department?
let's keep that the same and
Okay.
just kind of see how things change. Okay, so we got Bear, and now let's go back online. Okay. Well,
I'm
so
like really excited for this.
yeah. So looks like, yeah, the new changes got overwritten. I was actually expecting the field to be AppSync here.
It took it from the online one, huh?
Yeah, it took the online one, even though I have auto merge. But I'll look into that some more. I might just
I
have
think
something
it
misconfigured.
depends on the data structure that you chose uh for this. Like the conflict resolution applies differently based on
Well,
individual
yeah,
fields versus like
for sure.
objects.
So if it's a list, it will append elements. If it's a field, a scalar, it will replace. But it should, like I don't think it should have replaced the whole item. Like it should have kept the field that wasn't edited in the online app. So, but anyways, let's.
Which takes priority though when the like offline app comes back online? Is that what you're saying?
So it basically it's supposed to try to merge the field. So the latest edit will take priority.
Which could be offline, right? Because it will save the
Yeah,
time.
exactly. It'll go off of
I
the
see.
modified
The modify.
timestamp.
Okay, so yeah, so it should have probably put that over.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
that we modified this one second, so it would be the latest, but we didn't modify the department field. So I'm a little confused, but maybe I just have something misconfigured.
Okay.
Um, so now let's touch on sorting. So that's I kind of demonstrated that from the app.
Also, if there's any
Um,
questions,
mhm.
let us know.
Yeah, happy to answer any questions so far.
So one of the questions, which is something that I have also made a feature request for, is how do we show up a loading icon within the pet widget when it's updating to indicate that it's pending upload. So it looks like, for
Mhm.
example, maybe you're offline, or you haven't synced something yet. So we might want
Mhm.
to think about app level versus item level syncing. And I don't know, what do you think? There's a couple ways you could do it, I think.
I don't think that there is really on a item level. There's not, that's something that, like when you perform, let's say, a save, that operation goes against the local store. So it will succeed and it will resolve before it syncs to the cloud. So like you don't really have access to that. You can inspect hub events, but that
Exactly.
will
Hub.listen.
but that won't really give you good insight into a item level syncing. That will just tell you that, let's say, syncing has started and syncing has completed, or if it encountered any errors. But it would be pretty hard to infer um, individual item syncing. But so what's the use case where that would be necessary? Because like from this user's perspective, it's synced because all the operations are going against the local store. Um,
It's just
so
visibility and control, like it's
yeah, so
offering.
like I guess if an item has not synced at all, it won't have a version
Yeah, you can
value.
inspect the
Like,
field. Yeah.
but obviously that's only for the first one. I guess you can maintain, like really version is not something that is exposed to the customer. Like in the model gen in the generated models for the schema, like version won't be exposed. So like from the app, if I try to, let's say wherever I'm accessing, uh, wherever I'm accessing fields on that model, I shouldn't get, yeah, like I get autocomplete for all the fields except for those internal ones, like version, last modified, etc. So, I mean, yeah, there's not really a way to do that on a per item. But once again, like the idea is that as soon as you save it, it is updated to that user because all operations are going against the local store.
Yeah, I have Vic Chai, who's asking a question, says that apparently it's in use in Facebook when you're trying to make a new post and you're offline, it actually indicates that it's not synced yet. So, it's people want to know when it's public, when it's live on the
Mm-hmm.
public internet. So I think that's the use case. They don't just want to know when it's stored to the local database, I think. So yeah, I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think there are things we can do to expose it if we wish. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's I have a feature request somewhere. I'm gonna paste it in the chat for people to upvote. Um,
Cool.
one other thing I wanted to show people, for people who are completely new to the data store, could
Mm-hmm.
you scroll down to your datastore.save code?
Yeah,
The stuff
absolutely.
that the part that you were on earlier. So if you zoom in on that a little bit, just to, yeah, like that's how you add a new post. You add a
Mm-hmm.
new item. You literally declare new whatever
Actually,
that model is.
let me do a better one because that's where I'm
Oh,
doing it for each with all that
sure.
generated dummy data. But yeah,
Sure.
so
Okay.
that
Yeah.
this.
This save new code. That's it. That's all you need to do to add a new code, and DataStore
Mm-hmm.
takes care of the rest. And something I wanted to impress upon people who are new to DataStore is that it really removes a lot of the other miscellaneous code that you might have had to write. So for me, for example, I'm pretty used to optimistic responses, because when you send stuff over the wire, it might take 300 milliseconds or maybe a few seconds to respond, and that will make your app feel very slow. But because you have a local store on your device, you're instantly updating against that device,
Mm-hmm.
so you don't have to write optimistic responses because you
Mm-hmm.
just respond right away. And you also don't have to handle errors because errors basically don't happen, because
Mm-hmm.
you have a local store anyway. I might regret that statement. There may be some errors that we may have to handle, but anyway, most of the time you don't have to handle errors, and that's a really nice thing. So you're really only writing business logic, and I like
Mm-hmm.
that a lot.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's a very simple mental model, and like you don't have to think about caching and like detecting
Loading
connectivity.
states,
Mm-hmm.
Redux
Exactly.
actions. Like I converted a Redux app to a data store app, and there's just so much code I just deleted. Like I deleted hundreds of lines of code just because I don't need it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
So I was going to show kind of the sort code really quick. So kind of along the lines of what we're talking about, anytime you interact with data store, it's through one of the data store methods like save, query, delete, or observe to subscribe to subscriptions. So the way that sorting works is you can pass. There's a couple parameters that you can pass to query. Like the first one is the model that you're querying against. The predicates. This parameter allows you to specify a predicate, which is basically a filter. So if you wanted to only retrieve items with a certain ID or match the items you're retrieving on a field, that's what you would use, and I could demonstrate that. And then the third parameter is accepts pagination properties and allows you to pass a sort predicate in. So the sort predicate functions just like the kind of model predicate, you pass it a field that you want to sort on, and then ascending or descending. And you can actually chain these. You can chain as many fields as you want, and it will perform like multi-field sort in the priority that they're listed. So in this case, this is we're sorting dynamically based on the field that's being passed in from this dropdown right here. So name, species, breed, etc. That value gets passed in here. But normally, like if you're not making it dynamic, you would do it the following way, and you get IntelliSense as you start typing the predicate. So it gives you suggestions of what the valid fields are that you could sort on. So let's say we could do breed, and then it will also tell you that you need to pass it a direction. And you can we have a kind of a helper enum that we export. Oops, let me do this, and it just kind of guides you through that. And I'll show. So if you want to do queries, it's the same thing. You basically pass it a predicate like this, and same thing. You can do breed, gives you the different operators you can use. So kind of standard equals greater than, and on strings you can also do begins with, contains, not contains, that type of stuff. So this basically, yeah, this just serves as a filter on your query operations. And this goes against the local store. Like none of these operations actually impact the data getting sent, or the let's say the queries that get executed against AppSync. Now there is a way to do that, and we can explore that here in a second. But yeah, so basically I would pass something like it's like mix. I think that's one of the breeds to retrieve only animals with that breed. So are there any questions on this stuff that we just covered, or should I move on?
Oops, I was
I think,
muted.
yeah.
I was just
I
gonna
don't see
say,
any sorting questions.
it's funny you put the screenshot in the GitHub issue, but I did reopen that.
Yeah, exactly.
Should this go to the
So
doc
yeah,
site though?
people can upvote the. No, it's not. It's a feature request in for
Oh, I
DataStore.
thought you said that. Okay, yeah.
Uh, there are no questions on sort, I think, but there's some questions on um, indexing capabilities. I think we Renee is in the chat and he answered a little bit about that. Like data store
Thank
objects
you.
use ID as an index.
Huh?
There's a question about, is there a limit of how many items can be managed at the same time by data store? So like if 1,000 items, like what do we test this against?
So there's not a limit that DataStore imposes. So by default, we sync down 10,000 items, but that's configurable. So you can call the datastore.configure and pass it the max records to sync, and you can pass it really any value, say 50,000. Now, one thing to keep in mind is depending on the platform you're using, you might run into different capacity limits. So on IndexedDB, there is not a hard limit that's intrinsic to IndexedDB. It's limited by basically the total free capacity on your device. So let's say if you have like 100 gigs free, all of the apps in the browser that are using IndexedDB will share 30% of that free space. So if you have 100 gigs free, 30 gigs will be free to IndexedDB for IndexedDB consumption by all of your apps. And there's ways to inspect kind of how much is utilized, how much is still available. on some other platforms, like if you're building React Native apps, then async storage by default, I believe, has a 50 megabyte limit, so significantly stricter limit. You can override that, and I'm not exactly sure if there's like an absolute ceiling, but that's just something to keep in mind as it's platform dependent. On native platforms, SQLite has like a tremendous upper bound on how much data it can hold, so unlikely to run into limits, provided the device itself has sufficient capacity.
Makes sense.
Yep. Let's see. It looks like you're answering some of the questions.
Yeah. There's the uncodable on the streams also asked about, because I think we asked for sorting questions and he like came up with a sorting question.
Mm-hmm.
What if you want to sort by more than one items? So
Yeah, absolutely.
I think basically it's what you had earlier, but then with another
Yeah, let me,
argument.
I can go back to that really quick. Sort. So yeah, if we have more than one, let me just put the hard-coded one back. Got s dot breed, and then if we also want to sort on, it'd probably be the other way around. Let's do
Species, yeah.
species first. So that's species. So yeah, let's say that, or you could do, descending here and descending there, and you can chain these indefinitely. Obviously, after like 2 or 3, it doesn't really make sense to in most cases. Like it's not additional chained predicates aren't really going to make an impact most likely, unless you have a lot of duplicate values in the preceding predicates. But that's how you would do it, and it's the same way with the filter predicates too. And with the query predicates, you can also enclose them and or and not predicates, so you can perform that type of filtering too. So if there aren't any more questions, I can talk about how to selectively sync only a subset of your data. So we spoke earlier about how by default DataStore tends to pull everything down up to that max records to sync. But kind of if you want to pass filters to that sync query that originally hydrates the store, kind of how you would go about doing that. So I
Yeah.
can jump into that.
Yeah, I think that's an important part, and that's an important feature that we recently released. So we should talk
And
about it for sure.
I see it mentioned a ton in Discord, so
Yeah.
just for that
Oh,
reason.
one of the things I wanted to talk
Mm-hmm.
about before we do that is basically, like, people have been asking in the chat about DynamoDB support. Like basically the backend for this is AppSync and DynamoDB.
Mm-hmm.
That is the golden path that we support. It is pluggable to use other items, and I think we specifically design so that you don't even have to use AWS at all. Like you can use DataStore with a third party backend. That's the impression that I've been given. I haven't actually tried it myself, but
So
that's something
that's
that we
yeah, that's
explicitly designed for it.
that's not exactly true with DataStore. Like
Okay.
DataStore is really designed to work with AppSync, because I mean that's how like conflict resolution's handled, et cetera. I mean it's pretty, intrinsically tied to AppSync. Now, customers could, if they wanted to modify, let's say the resolvers, the AppSync resolvers, to persist to a different database, right? So instead of persisting to Dynamo, we you could potentially write your own resolvers that would store your data anywhere, anywhere that AppSync resolvers have access to. So like out of the box, you could resolve to just like straight Lambda. You could use a relational database like Aurora. There's some other options too. But yeah, I wouldn't say that's not a particularly easy.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can just like do through the CLI like you can with most things, but it's certainly possible.
Gotcha. We have a couple more small ones.
Hmm.
How does pagination work with sorting?
Hmm.
Like, do we offer cursors and stuff like that?
Yeah, so pagination, let's see. Oh, you would essentially define in this third parameter that you're passing.
The options, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you could do limit, let's say only 100 items, and 1 second, I'm actually spacing on exactly what we pass. So, give me 1 moment. Yeah, and a page, of course, and a page variable. So basically, the way you would do it is right now you get the first 100 items, then you would increment this. So obviously you could have a variable in there instead of hard coding it. But that's essentially how you would use pagination. And pagination is applied after the sort, as you would expect. So items get sorted first, and then the pagination values are applied to the query.
It's interesting that in AppSync, I think we actually use cursors, right? Whereas
Mhm.
here it's more pages and page size.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and that's like behind the scenes. Like when we're performing queries, like that, we do something similar as well, but it's a slightly different model. Um,
yep. Cool.
just using it locally.
Small question about syncing protocols. So if a
Mhm.
device doesn't support WebSockets, does it default to polling? I think we can configure that.
No. So it uses WebSockets only.
Okay.
Mhm.
It
Cool.
uses the AppSync real-time provider, the WebSocket implementation of it. So yeah, not at the moment. It's probably something that maybe could potentially be added like via pull request, but uh,
I don't
at the
see a lot
moment
of
it's just
requests for that. So
Yeah, anything can be added to the GitHub repo, so as a
Mhm.
yeah,
feature
file an
request.
issue if you need it,
Yeah.
and we definitely keep on top of those. Um, all right. So and then I think there's one more, which is can you explain how authentication fits in DataStore? So yeah,
Mhm.
there's this question of like there's some
That's a good
limits to
one.
DataStore. For example, the searchable directive is not supported.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
Auth, I think. Yeah, you want to just talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that leads us straight into the selective sync.
Selective.
Mhm. So let
Yeah.
me, I'll bring up the docs really quickly just to have some stuff to point to. Uh, Sorry, my Chrome is being slow for me right now.
You're also on the CLI docs. I don't know if that's
Yeah, that's where
okay.
the authentication directives are listed.
Is that not clear, Sean?
What?
Oh no, I was just making a joke that maybe it's not the best place to put it.
I mean, it's
So the
hard.
reason they're there is because you define these kind of as you're generating the schema, and then when you perform
Right.
amplify
Yeah.
push and amplify code gen models, those changes get consumed. So it's really like the front end doesn't really need to be aware
Yeah,
of them
yeah.
in most cases.
Part of
Uh,
data store is abstracting over GraphQL, so you don't
mhm.
have to use it if you don't need to.
Yeah, exactly. So like they're really, if you're just using DataStore, your only kind of exposure to GraphQL syntax is when modeling your tables and relationships and everything surrounding that. So pretty much just the schema.graphql. So it's kind of like just being aware of GraphQL syntax, but you really don't need to understand GraphQL in depth to use data store.
We were
For
actually
now,
talking about that,
for
Ivan.
now.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
That's what I was telling
So
Ivan. Is like some people, not everyone is super deep into GraphQL, but he
yeah,
Stay
assured me
tuned.
that you just need a basic level.
yeah, basically just familiarity with the syntax. Like there's a very small amount of kind of GraphQL specifics. So the way you configure authorization rules is using this add auth directive. So let's say if we wanted to add authorization to this API, we would do add auth like this, and then we could pass it a list of rules. And the rules are, they're basically dependent on what authentication type you've configured on your API. So when you do, let me pull in the shell here. I'll make it larger. Is this large enough? So basically, for this
Yeah, sounds
API, we
good.
could do amplify update API, GraphQL, update auth settings. So the default authentication type is API key, and that's basically public in the sense that any client that has this API key will be able to connect to it. It's not public to the world, right? So just like any random person, if they don't have this API key, they won't be able to execute requests against your API. But let's say we wanted to use Cognito user pools for authentication. We would choose user pools. If we don't have any like specific configurations, we can just go with default, stick with all these default settings, and know I'm done. And then in a moment, let's say if that's the only authentication type that we want, then just say no here. And now our Amplify CLI is ready for an update. So basically this will create an auth category. It will provision a Cognito user pool and set up all of the requisite roles for basically Cognito and AppSync to work well with each other. And then we see an update here. So that basically adds the user pools as a default auth type on the API. So we can do, I have amplify alias to amp because I'm lazy, but in reality it would just be amplify push. Okay, so now that we've specified that auth type, we would basically there's a few different authorization rules that we could define. Kind of the most common one is owner auth, and essentially that will by default protect any items that you've created only to yourself. So the user that's logged in, when they're creating items, updating items, deleting items, only they can see them. So it's kind of like a very private level of authorization. We can pass it a operations argument, and this allows us to be more fine-grained with what operations are, basically protected, that are like locked to that user. So
What
let's
are
say,
they? Like read, write?
yeah, it's just CRUD essentially.
Okay.
So in our case, we could do like create, update, delete, and what this will do is that any log that, since we left out read, that means read is unprotected. So any logged in user will be able to read all the items, but they won't be able to update or delete other users' items. So those will be protected to the user that created them. So that's
Yeah.
kind of that's. Mhm.
Yeah, I think people are looking for more. We don't have that much time left, so
Mhm.
we do want to go right into selective sync.
I was gonna
Cool.
say we should probably save that for another time, not to
Mhm.
be annoying because we only have like 2 or 3 minutes left. I just
Yeah,
know
yeah,
that
makes
we
sense.
we always go over.
Yeah, yeah,
We
Let's
absolutely.
show
jump.
let's show the docs. Let's show the docs and
Okay,
show where people
not to
can
be a
find
party
more.
pooper, but um,
We got in
Yeah,
trouble
so
we like
for that
always get in
before.
trouble. So, and we're
sounds
supposed to
good.
end like 2 or 3. I think we're supposed to end like 5 minutes early.
Gotcha. So yeah, let's do selective sync really quickly. So just to kind of catch us back up, as we discussed, by default, DataStore syncs the entire contents of the Dynamo table to your local store. However, you can utilize a new feature that we're kind of referring to as selective sync. But basically, you can selectively sync down data based on predicates that you pass to DataStore. So basically, there's a new optional property on configure. It's called sync expressions. It takes an array, and there's a special helper function called sync expression that you can import. And the reason for it is it allows you to get IntelliSense when constructing these expressions. So let's say in our case, we pass it pet. And let's say we just want to sync down cats and no other animals. So we would do species cat. And as you saw, like sorry, oops, I missed one. So I should use the operator there. So equals, and then the value cat. Okay, let me restart the, okay. I'm just gonna cancel this push because it's kind of irrelevant to what we're doing. So I'm gonna restart the Create React app.
It's really cool to see. We almost have 100 people. I feel like this is one of our most exciting sessions, Ivan.
Oh, nice.
DataStore, man.
I think it's DataStore. We'll have to do a follow-up deep dive.
DataStore.
Data.
Yeah, we'll have. Yeah, we will have to do a follow up.
So
yeah,
we'll do that. I guess while that's being
So
figured
yeah,
out.
so now the app started back up, and you'll see the total is 30, whereas like we had I think like 50 or 60, and so all we're syncing down our cats, which is what we passed.
whoa. Did he just
I did
crash?
not do that. Yeah, he did.
You just kicked him off, man.
I
Wow,
didn't.
you're really brutal with your.
I accidentally.
Okay, there he goes.
Yeah, you hear that? Someone clipped that because he accidentally clicked
My apologies. So I meant to refresh my app here, and I accidentally refreshed the window
No, but
for the StreamYard.
that was quick and probably very convenient. It's very
Yeah,
fast
that
to
was
implement,
funny.
and it's an important feature, especially for multi-tenant
Yeah,
apps.
DataStore is really cool, honestly. I was
And
wondering, like, how are people doing this today?
well, so
Dude, he
there
just
was no way to
disappeared
do
again.
this without
No,
selective
but
sync.
like, what?
Mhm.
So okay, so it was just a lot of overhead.
With without selective sync, everything always got synced down, except for like if authorization rules. That basically serves as another filter. So if you're using owner auth, right, then the owner essentially gets applied to the sync queries and the subscriptions as a filter. But outside of owner auth, there was no way to select what subset of
I
data
see.
gets synced down. But yeah, so like the thing here also is that yeah, like we're refreshing, we're still getting 30 items, and
We
any
can't see your screen.
oh shoot, I'm sorry.
We are more or less running out of time, though.
Okay,
I say
my
we just do a
apologies.
follow-up session
Mhm.
because we're gonna get. Yeah, I'll put your screen up quickly, but
Yeah.
yeah, you have 30 seconds.
So basically, the sync predicate we defined that only syncs down cats. Basically, every subsequent refresh of the app, it will use that same predicate. So also, like once we've performed the base sync, of course, every subsequent sync is just going to be a delta sync. So it only syncs the changes that to the data that have occurred since the last base sync. And the sync predicates also get applied to the subscription messages. So mutations from other clients, they're also being filtered on the predicates we pass to selective sync, to the sync expressions.
Sweet. Okay. we better end off. So like I said, this was our last episode. We will be back. I guess just follow our Twitter because I don't think we have a date right now, but we'll definitely have to do more of a deep dive
Next year.
next year. Well, thank you, Ivan. This was definitely probably the most popular episode.
Absolutely,
And
my pleasure.
if you could post the code in the Discord, I'll post our Discord link.
Mhm.
Then that way folks can kind of play with it.
Yeah, sure. I'll put this in the public repo and I'll share it with everyone. So,
Yeah,
Okay,
great job,
sweet.
man.
Okay,
all
we
right.
better
Thank
head
you guys
out.
so much for having me.
Bye,
It's
everyone.
been great.
Yep, thanks.